Good day everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to a new review. For today I have the Oukitel K7000 and this is yet another entry-level device from China. So we have a MediaTek 6737 processor. This is a quad-core processor. We have 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage and running Android 6. This is probably the thinnest phone that you're gonna get for under $100, and yes, the phone is very thin. Now, when I heard the name, the K7000, I was imagining that it's gonna come with a 7000 milliamp battery. But, surprise, we got a 2000 milliamp battery. And since I'm talking about the battery already, the results aren't the best. So you're gonna be able to get about 2 hours of screen on time, and maybe you're gonna make it through one day. But more than that, it's not gonna happen on this 2000 milliamp battery. Starting with the back of the device, so we have a removable plastic back, and this plastic back will get scratched very easy, so you're gonna have to be careful whenever you set the phone down. We're gonna find the 5 megapixel camera sensor, the flash and the fingerprint scanner. The fingerprint scanner, it's accurate 9 out of 10 times, so not too bad, but it isn't the fastest out there. So all you have to do is touch the fingerprint scanner and the screen will get unlocked. The K7000 has a metallic frame with rounded corners and it does look a lot like an iPhone. So on the right hand side of the frame we're gonna find the power button and the volume keys, and these are also made out of metal. They feel very nice to actually touch. On top of the frame we're gonna find a 3.5mm audio jack, and I did plug in some headphones and they sound like most of these Chinese phones, so nothing special. And all the way at the bottom we're gonna find the speaker and the microphone and the charging port. So we get a micro USB charging port. And since I'm talking about the speaker, it does get very loud. There is a lot of bass as well. And here is a sample of how the speaker sounds. Moving on the front of the device, so we have a 5-inch screen with a resolution of 720p. This is an IPS display that has good viewing angles, the colors are nice and vibrant, and the screen seems to get rather bright. However, if you do take the phone outside, there's going to be a lot of glare and reflection, and it's going to be difficult to actually see the screen. The screen sensitivity is rather good, and you can touch the screen in 10 places in the same time and the screen will register. There is also a 2 megapixel front-facing camera on this device. However, the quality from this 2 megapixel front-facing camera, it's not the best, and these are a couple of sample pictures that I took earlier today. So in low light conditions the pictures don't turn out good at all, and in good light conditions they turn out okay and nothing more than that. So the front-facing camera is going to be okay for maybe video calling and something like that, but for more than that, no. Aside from that, we are going to find a light sensor and a proximity sensor, and we don't have a notification light available on this device. And all the way at the bottom of the screen, we're going to find the home button, the return key and the multitasking key. Unfortunately, they don't really light up, only the home button lights up, but it has to be very dark wherever you are in order to actually see that button. The K7000, it's running Android 6, and on top of that Oukitel's own skin. This skin looks a lot like something that you'd find on an iPhone, so yes, they're kind of trying to copy an iPhone. We don't have an app drawer, and other than that it does look similar to stock Android. So the only difference is the fact that we don't have an app drawer. The settings app, it's nice and simple. We do have a couple of options there. So we do have gesture unlock, for example. You can draw a letter on the screen and the phone will unlock. You can double tap the screen and the phone will unlock. So a couple of useful features that I would actually use. There are some features that aren't as useful, but again, everybody uses phones differently. One thing I found that I actually enjoyed about the phone was an app locker. So basically you can set a lock for an app, and this way you cannot open that app unless you put your fingerprint on the fingerprint scanner or you enter that password. So that could be useful if you're trying to hide something from your girlfriend, for example. Other than that, the phone is fairly simple. We don't have that many options, and the more options you have with these entry-level devices, they tend to actually slow the phones down. Out of the 16 gigs of internal storage, you have about 11 left, and keep in mind that this phone is running Android 6, so you can install an SD card and format that as internal storage. Yes, this phone takes an SD card. There is a slot for an SD card on the back there. So because we have an SD card, we are not going to be limited by the storage of the device. The speeds for the internal storage are also great, and I wasn't actually expecting to get these kind of speeds on such a cheap device. On the Antutu benchmark, we get a rather low score of about 30,000, but this is quite normal for that quad-core processor that this phone is using. And on the Geekbench 4, we get a multi-core score of about 1500. So again, the scores aren't the most amazing out there, but let's keep in mind the price of this device. The GPS takes a few seconds to connect, it takes longer if you're inside the house. However, once connected, it stays connected. And Google Maps, it's also easy to use, and I haven't found any issues while using Google Maps. For sensors, as you'd expect from such a cheap device, we don't really have that many sensors. However, the ones that we actually have seem to work very good. Even though we don't get the highest scores on the Antutu benchmark, the phone still performs rather good. So using the browser, for example, it's nice and smooth. You have to give a phone a couple of seconds for it to actually load that page. But after it loads the page, you can zoom in, zoom out without any issues. Using the YouTube app also works really good. The maximum resolution, it's basically the resolution of the screen, which is 720p. And all the videos that I tried seem to go fairly smooth. And the phone seems to work fairly good for gaming as well. So yes, we don't have the fastest processor out there, but it does okay for most games that we're gonna be able to download from the Google Play Store. And because most of us love to take pictures, the rear camera of any phone is rather important. So the camera app that we get on this device looks like any other camera app that we've seen on all these MediaTek devices. So the camera app doesn't have that many options. It is very, very limited. We do have an HDR mode out there as well. We do have a couple of other options, but overall the camera app kind of sucks and it is a bit slow as well. The HDR mode works okay if you have plenty of time, even though the pictures taken in HDR mode seem a bit taken to the extreme. And this is an example of a picture taken with the HDR mode on and with the HDR mode off. For nighttime pictures, yeah, the phone doesn't do good at all. So if it's kind of dark outside, you're better off not taking pictures with this phone because the pictures aren't gonna turn out good. For daytime usage, I think the phone takes okay pictures. I'm not gonna say good or great, they're just okay, but for the price of the phone, I think this is rather normal and we can't really expect that much from the camera. The K7000 also has 4G capability, so it could connect to 4G networks. However, I wasn't able to connect to any 4G networks, and here where I'm located, I was only able to connect to the 2G networks, and yeah, that's very, very slow. Aside from that, for Wi-Fi, we only have the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network, so we don't have dual band Wi-Fi. And of course, the speeds for Wi-Fi and on the 2G network are not great, so they're rather disappointing. Making phone calls on the phone, it's like any other Chinese phone. Everybody was able to hear me okay, and I haven't had any issues listening on the speaker on top here. And it's time to conclude this video. So overall, this phone is not that impressive. We have a 2000 mAh battery that can barely make it through an entire day. Even though we have a metallic frame and the phone is nice and thin, yeah, that 2000 mAh battery kind of kills the phone for me. Aside from that, we have huge bezels around the screen. So the screen doesn't look that nice because we have those big black bezels around it. The phone doesn't have OTG, the camera's not great, and basically this phone is not the best phone out there. So if you are really into this iPhone-ish looking design, sure, you can get this phone, but I do believe that you can get like a Redmi 3S, for example, for under $100, and that phone performs much better than this one. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.